Good morning, everyone. Today, I want to talk about your final project. Basically, what I am going to do is to give you the directions for the project and hopefully allow you to create your teams and start working. So, final project. First, this week, your main activity is about the final project. You're going to have several weeks to work. However, also, besides the final project, you have activities to do. Remember, it's an hybrid class. So this class, I told you about the final project, but the replacement of a second lecture during the week is an exercise, a group of videos that you need to watch, and an exercise that you need to do. So today you have homework. Your homework, exercise 7, is about project management. You need to watch a couple of videos, and then you need to solve some problems. As usual, you can finish this in 1 or 2 hours. It's something easy, 1 or 2 hours. Please do not forget, as usual, it's due next Monday. Besides this, that is individual, as usual, your personal work, the project. Talking about the project, your project is 15% of your grade. What is the meaning of this? Your project, this project is equivalent to one of your exams. Remember, you have 3 exams, each exam 15%. This is the equivalent to the exam number 4. It's a lot. The project is about programming. I am going to ask you to do a piece of software. The goal is that maybe, hopefully, you apply in that project things that we review during the semester. I am going to mention specifics, but you're going to do programming. Your submission is going to be, among other things, Java files. You're going to program using Java. Now, this program, you're going to work in a team. I mentioned this. You can work alone if you want. There is no obligation to create a team. If you want to work alone, if you want to be a team of 1, fine. 2, 3, 4. The top is 5. You can be a team of 5. That could be great. But again, we do not have enough people. I only have other 3 friends. We want to be a team of 4. It is fine. Up to you. You are going to create your teams. I do not want to tell you who are going to be your teammates. The goal is that you apply what we have reviewed in the past. It is up to you if you select friends or if you are open to work with new people. You are free to create your team. So maximum 5 people. Your grade, 50% of your final grade, programming. Obviously, I am going to ask you for a document beside the source code. I am going to talk about it. You're going to do a class diagram. You're going to do requirements, use case diagrams, user stories, and other things. But I think the core is the programming. The core is the source code. It should compile, it should work, and it's a lot of points. Yeah, okay. I am glad that you are happy. You can choose your teams, yes. Why? Particularly at this moment, with the situation online, with the COVID situation, and some of you are working, some of you have different schedules, maybe some of you are not in Arizona. So in order to avoid more complications that the one that already exists, you can create your teams. Good. So again, 50% of your grade is going to be programming. I am going to give you the specifications, the team, 1 to 5. So yes, you can work alone. The due date, guys, November 3rd. So you're going to have a couple of weeks to work. Main recommendation, do not wait until November 29 to start working. Even if you are the best programmer ever, start working as soon as you can, finish this, submit, forget about it. If you start working November 29 and therefore you ask for an extension, The answer is no, no extensions. Again, it should be unfair for the students that submit on time, give an extension to those that procrastinate. I am going to describe the requirements, but you can finish this in a week. Thinking about even if you are alone. It's going to be more work, but technically in a week, 10 hours, you can finish and you have 3. So no extensions, please start working as soon as possible. And as usual, if you have questions, you can contact me, you can contact the TA. So 3 weeks, basically create a team, organize yourselves. What are you going to do? I am going to ask you to use particular libraries. You're going to notice the description of the project. So you have time to learn this in case that you haven't used those before. Obviously, do programming, including the fact that you're going to integrate the project. Somehow you're going to split the work between you and your team. A document, I am going to give you more details. Testing, think about, you do not want to submit your source code and found that it do not compile or it didn't accomplish all the requirements. Again, it's the same value, 15%, like one exam. It's a lot. You do not want to lose those points just because you didn't do enough testing, right? So testing, integration, submit, easy. A specification, what are you going to do? Let's see, 3 things. Number 1, there is going to be one link in which you are going to submit the project. One link in which you are going to submit the Java code. One particular link in which one thing to submit is the source code. We are asking only for the Java files. You do not need to submit anything else. Use the Java files. Probably it's a good idea to submit a zip file with everything inside. Up to you. Submit the source code. And the only requirement for us, do not use packages. Create your project, no package instruction. Use the classes, all the classes in the same folder. This is going to make easy for the graders to get everything, put in a folder, and on the console, compile everything. That is the only reason, because I am asking you, do not use packages. So the graders are going to have an easy task, use compiling all the projects with one instruction. Okay, this is number 1. 2, I am asking you to submit in a different link. You're going to have another link for this, the project report. The project report, a document. The document, I am asking you for the following. Number 1, requirements. I want you to explain me the requirements of the project. Let me be clear. This is not a programming lab. I am not going to give you a checklist and then grade that you are able to program that. You already did that in 110 or a similar class. I am going to describe an idea. I am going to describe as a customer a piece of software that I need. I want you to create in a document a specification of requirements. I want you to talk with your team, and if you need, contact the customer, me, the TAs, and be sure that the requirements of the system that you're going to implement are correct. Remember, testing was about found errors in the software, but also about being sure that whatever you are doing is what the customer wants. So requirements, how to document requirements, how to present requirements in this document. I am okay if you want to use user stories. I am okay if you want to use use cases. User stories, text, use cases, the diagrams. Any of those options, fine. Put your requirements in a document. if you need to contact me or contact the TAs in order to validate that the requirements are fine, in order to check that your use case diagram is the correct one, if you're moving forward in the correct directions, please do it. Again, it's 50% of your grade. Use like an exam and you have the opportunity to validate that you're moving forward in the correct direction. I am sure that you want to do that before submission. So requirements, user stories or use cases, up to you. Put the requirements in the document. Second, I am asking you to submit, to include a class diagram. A class diagram, I am sure that you're going to talk with your team about good options to split the problem in different classes. And hopefully each of you is going to work in one or more classes, a subset of the full program, in a group of user stories, in a group of requirements, and then you're going to integrate, whatever. I want to have a picture of your system in a diagram, in a class diagram. Now, let me be clear. We're going to grade your diagram. We're going to grade that your diagram is showing in a correct way, association, aggregation, composition, realization, generalization. A common mistake that students do is to think that the diagram is just, an adornment. Use a picture for the document. That is not the case. The diagram should match with the code 100%. If you submit a class and that class is inheriting from another class, the class diagram should show that inheritance as a connection between the two classes. Exactly the same apply for associations, aggregations, compositions, diamonds or not diamonds, global variables or not, everything is local, calling methods only, all that should match, and it's going to be reviewed and it's going to be graded. Again, it's just like an exam in which you have the opportunity to check that your work is correct. Do it. Talk with your team. Be sure that each of the team members take a look to the code and take a look to the diagram, and they match. It could be very, very sad that just because the diagram and the code do not match, even though you work hard in the source code, you do not receive full points in something that should be hopefully 50% easy points, hopefully. So class diagram, be careful, review it. Now, the document also, please add screenshots. Your program is working in your computers. Give us some screenshots of your program running. Why? Because if you're giving me screenshots with your program running, and for any reason the grader cannot compile your program, cannot run your program, well, it's supposed to run. Otherwise, probably the grader is going to think like, well, this group of students submit something, we're going to give partial credit, but this something is not really a final version that is running, working, doing everything. So I usually ask you, screenshot, show me that your program is running, working. Take not one, but several. Maybe each screenshot show one functionality. I am going to describe that. And that could be useful for the graders. Good. Requirements, software design with the class diagram, screenshot, the program is running. Now, testing. I am recommending you to do a very good testing of your software. Again, you do not want to submit something that later do not run. I am not asking you for any particular approach to testing. I am not asking you mandatory to create unit test cases, for instance. However, I am asking you to tell me in the document, what did you do to test your program? What was the approach that you follow? And if you follow unit testing, you implement a unit, give me the test cases, add in your document the test cases that you use. Obviously, you do not need test cases to test everything. For instance, the graphical user interface, that is tested in a different way. But if you create unit testing for the functionality for the core of the system, include here your test cases. If you do not use test cases, if you do not follow this approach, JUnit, you're going to do something else, right? You're going to be sure that your program works in some way. Tell me what? Details, testing, your approach. What did you do? Similar, I am asking you in the document regarding the management of the project. Your assignment, as I mentioned before, this week is regarding project management, but in general, I am curious about the process model that you're going to follow. You can use waterfall if you want. You're going to have all the requirements. You can follow Agile. You have previous experience with that. You want to follow that. Incremental, prototyping. Tell me, when you finish your project, when you're doing this document, what was the process model that you follow? Why? Just show me that you remember process models and that you can map something that is theoretical with whatever you did doing this piece of software. Process models, how did you split the responsibilities? Who did what? You were a team of 5. What was the responsibility of each of you? I am reading here about Scrum Masters. Well, what was the responsibility of the Scrum Master? How that person helped to the project? It was really a Scrum Master? I don't know. How did you monitor the project? If you're following Agile, you are doing a burn-down chart, please share that with me. If you're following any other approach, a plan-based approach, well, you are going to read about per charts, share that with me. So again, your project management, including which is the process model that you're following, how did you organize the work? And one of those diagrams, the per chart or the burn-down chart or both, if you are following Agile, and you can share with me both of them. I want to know, what did you do? Project report, requirements, class diagram, screenshot, testing, project management. Moreover, element number 3, after you submit, this is going to happen after November 30. In some point, the TA is going to share with you a link to a survey. And in the survey, we are going to ask each of you individually to evaluate your team and yourselves. Again, it's going to happen after you submit, so you already complete the experience, and we are asking each of you to evaluate yourselves and your team anonymously. You're going to have the opportunity to express your feelings about what happened with your team. Yeah, we're going to give you time for reflection. The survey is anonymous, but the average is going to impact your grade. So if you tell me that someone in the team didn't work, if all the surveys confirm that, if you were in a team, but all your team members telling me that you didn't accomplish the task that you were asked to do, well, obviously your grade is not going to be the same grade that the grade for the rest of the team. So this survey impact your grade is an average of your own evaluation. It's important that you submit your own evaluation plus the evaluation of your team members. Here, my advice, guys, I am allowing you to do your team. You are going to select the people that is going to work with you. Even if that people is your best friend, I will recommend that before you start working, maybe today, tomorrow, this week, talk and set up expectations. I want to work in this project and I need to get an A+, so 50% of the points. I am okay with only 5 or 10 points. I really don't care. I do not want to use a lot of time here. You do not want to send me an email telling me, Professor, my team only won 5 points, so they are not working. What can I do? The only thing that I can tell you is work alone or search for another team. Do not wait for me to tell you that. Today or before you start working, talk with the people that you are planning to make a team. Is talk about, guys, really, I need 50% here. I really need to get a very good grade. Are you in the same plan or not? So we can work together, or maybe it's time for me to search another team. Talk. In the same way, are you planning to have daily meetings, like working with Agile? Maybe for some people, I just want to meet you one time per week. Are we okay with that? I want to meet every day. You want to meet every week. Can we find a middle point for this? Do you want to use Agile, or you are thinking about plan-based, or maybe prototypes? Are you in the same time zone? Are you going to be able to meet? One of you is okay having meetings early in the morning, and the other is okay having meetings at night, and the et cetera can continue. Please talk, be professional, search for a team that match your needs. To be honest, there is nothing that I can do if you send me an email complaining about your team. It's like, well, you choose your team. What can I do, right? Well, regarding these elements, there are other elements in which maybe I can help or intervene, but for these elements, it's your choose, it's your selection. Be careful. So the source code in one link, the document in a second link, and finally the survey. 3 elements, and those 3 elements together is going to make 15% of your grade. Good? No, you cannot work with people in the other section. I am reading that question only with people in your section. So you can create your team, but every single member of the team should be in this section. Sorry. Okay. I already mentioned the people. Yeah, thank you for helping. Good. Okay. So again, guys, November 30, the due date. Be aware that before the due date is Thanksgiving. So your due date is early, the beginning of the week. The previous week was Thanksgiving, and I think you do not want to be working on Thanksgiving. Again, talk with your team. Maybe some of you want to work in those days, some of you don't. Talk with your team. But in general, I could assume that you are not going to be working those days. The TAs and myself, we are not going to be available those days. The university is closed those days. Think about this. If you are going to start working in the project November 29, 28, 27, 26, so if you're going to procrastinate this, the probability that you are not going to be able to get help close the due date is very high. Number one, because the Thanksgiving holiday. Number two, usually myself and the TA, we use like 24 hours, 48 to answer your emails. That is usually. Why? Well, you are almost 300 people here, and the other section is almost 200. The number of emails that the TAs or myself receive every day is a little bit high. Usually 24 hours, 48 hours to reply. If you start working one day before the due date and you're thinking that you're going to send a question and you're going to get an answer, the probabilities of receiving an answer November 29 are almost zero. You can be lucky and you can be the first email there and you receive a reply and help, but the probabilities are low. Again, start working as soon as possible. Start asking questions as soon as possible. And the same apply for the office hours. The probability of having office hours Monday, the same day that the project is due, are probably low if you ask for office hours one day before, 2 days before. Usually, the people ask for office hours early, the beginning of the week, and the office hours are Wednesday, Friday, depending on the schedule. So think about this. If you procrastinate, the consequences are going to be that almost for sure, the help that you're going to be able to receive is low. Start working, please. And I am repeating this a lot of time, but start working as soon as possible is a lot of points here. Moving forward. Okay, so you are reading about other things. There is an exercise 7. I already talked about it. Exams, they are being graded. You're going to receive, as usual, an email where the graders finish. Okay, moving forward. The description of the project. Again, you are going to create the requirements. You are the ones documenting requirements. That is something that I am asking you to do. The only thing that I am going to do is to share with you a story, share with you as a customer what I need. From this, you get the requirements and you start working in the software. Final project, the description. What are you going to do? The following. Number 1, your final project is going to have a graphical user interface. A graphical user interface like the one that I am showing is like a JFrame is involved here. Inside, I need a menu bar, that menu bar, 2 options, file and about. A JFrame, that JFrame have a menu bar. The menu bar have 2 menus, file and about. The about is very easy. The only thing that I would like to have is click about and have some kind of dialog box with the information of your team. The classical about for any application, right? A frame, a menu, about, click, the information of your team, the easy part. Second, I have this file menu. All the functionality of the system is going to be there. All the options are going to be that menu, the menu file. If you haven't used menus before, JMenu, I am giving you the link for the tutorial. I am going to mention this later, but your project, all your project is Java, Java Swing, Java AWT. There is only one library that I am allowing you to use, and I am going to mention that library later. Nothing else. Swing, AWT, and one library to make plots. I am going to mention the name later in another slide. So that's it. Do not send me emails asking me if you can use something else. Java Swing, AWT, and only one extra library that I am going to mention later. A frame, the frame have a menu. The menu have 2 options. It's a JMenu. This is the link for a tutorial just in case that you need it. No Java effects. That's exactly what I was talking about. No Java effects. Swing, AWT, and one library that I am going to mention. Step number 1, the user interface. Hopefully this is trivial, simple. Moving forward, the menu. Inside of the menu, I am asking you for 4 elements. Those are going to be the 4 functionalities in your project. Load, add, save, plot. And I am going to describe them one by one. Those functionalities and the description as follows. Starting with the first one, load a roster. When I click here, what I am expecting to happen is the following. The system should ask me for a file, and ask me for a file in a nice way, using that. I want you to use the J file chooser. When I click the option load a roster, a file chooser appears, and I have the opportunity to search for a file. That file is going to be a CSV file. I am going to talk more about it, but step number 1, I click in the menu, I get a file chooser, and I select a file. That is important. If you haven't used file chooser before, I am giving you a tutorial. Your challenge with the project is going to be put things together. I am giving you tutorials and reference for all the small parts. And in the tutorials, you have the source code. The challenge here is how to put everything together. Your work. Load roster, a dialog box open. I select the file. Okay. Second, that file is a comma separate values. Every line, values with commas. I am going to show you an example, but your goal is to read the file and load the file in a data structure. Which data structure? Up to you. Whatever data structure that you want to use, you read the file, put all the data in the memory of the computer. If you haven't worked before with reading files, in particular, reading data from comma-separated values files, here is a tutorial with an example, the source code for reading a file and separate the values, searching for the comma. The next step, with the information, store the information in a data structure, linked list, dynamic array, your choice. Load. That is the functionality. Now, the data structure, whatever you want, but for the Java API. So from the collections in the Java API, you can use arrays, vectors, lists, maps, trees, whatever. But the data structure from the Java API, the one that Java provides by default. Here, my recommendation for this one, the easy choice, a list of lists, a list for the row, and a list that store each of the rows. So this is going to be like a matrix, but again, up to you. Yeah, you can use Java util. Everything inside of Java util is good to go. Array list is exactly what I was talking about. Yeah. Okay, one option in the menu, read everything. Perfect. Moving forward. This is the file that you're going to read. This is what I am calling the roster file. The file is going to have these values. One ID, comma, a name, first name, comma, last name, comma, a program, computer science, software engineering, industrial engineering, whatever, a program, comma, academic level, grad or undergrad, and your ID in ALU, this name that is before your email, right? Those are the values in the file. This is the file that you're going to read. To be clear, the files do not have headers. The files are use the data. I put the headers here used to give you these slides, and you can remember the meaning of each of the columns. This is the file that you're going to read. I am showing you only one line. Obviously, what you're going to read is several lines. I am talking about, this is the roster of the class. This is the roster of one of the class. How many elements? 20 to 300 or more. And that is the reason because my recommendation is a dynamic data structure. The size is going to change. The rows, the columns, always the same. This is the file that you're going to read. 6 fields. And again, no headers, only data in the real file. Next. I want to show the data on the screen. Show the data on the screen. Well, the best way to show the data is in a table like this, right? Java gives you an element to create tables, JTable. I have never worked with JTables before. Don't worry. Here is the tutorial. The tutorial is one web page with one example. And you read the example and it's something that you already know. Arrays, objects, news, calling methods. You know about it. It's a new widget, but the background is the same. JTable. I want you to put the data from the data structure that you create in the view. In the view, in particular, in this widget, a table. Let me be clear. The widget, you're going to notice that the only way to insert information into the widget is using arrays. Well, at least it's one way, the easy way. You have your data here. maybe in a linked list, you need to do something in the middle. If you're using the collections is in Java util, they have methods that return an array from the collection. Take a look to that. Now, that is just a solution. You can implement any other. My point is, your data here, the JTable here, you're going to notice that the collection involves at least one of the approaches, arrays. Solve the problem, connect these two pieces. Something that you will need to do in the future, in the next requirements, is to update the data in the table. I am going to ask you to add more columns. I am going to talk about it, but I will put here also the second tutorial. The second tutorial is all about how to update the table dynamically, how to create more columns or more rows after I create the original one. So just in case that you needed, 2 tutorials, Java table and how to update dynamically a table. Option number 1 in the menu, load a roster from a comma-separated values file, put the data in a data structure, and then show the content of the data structure in a JTable. That is step 1, first requirement. Good. Moving forward, small parenthesis, your table. I am sure that you're going to notice that you need scroll bars. You need scroll bars because, well, this is going to grow horizontal, but maybe if we use a big file, also it's going to grow vertical. Scroll bars. Your JTable do not have a scroll bar by default. However, there is something called scroll pane. The scroll pane gives you the scroll bars. By the way, you're going to notice you have the scroll table and you're going to put the scroll table inside of a scroll pane. You're going to be using the decorator pattern. What you're going to do is to decorate the table with a scroll pane. That is going to happen. The object and the decorator both are from the Java API. JTable is a class in the API. JScrollPane is a class in the API. You're going to put them together in order to have a table like this, but with the scrolls. Check this. I think one person in the team can take care of this, hopefully. Next. Option number 2. Option number 2 is another option that involves reading a file. Reading a file, and therefore I click here. And what I am going to have is another file chooser, the dialog to select the file. It's going to be another comma-separated values file. I am going to show you the example of the file, but again, is for the second time, reading a file. By the way, you cannot do add attendance if you haven't loaded a roster. The graders and the process here is that all these things happen in sequence. You cannot do the option 2 if you haven't done the option 1. I am talking about you as a user. The user should first load the roster, then the user have the option to add attendance, and then have the option to save, and then have the option to do something else. So this should be in this order. Good. Another CSV file, and this one is going to have an extra requirement. When I click here, I have this to open the file, but also the computer should ask me for a date. And in order to ask me for a date, well, we need something like a calendar, and then I can select the month and the date. Something fancy, you know? Something better than use a text field asking me for the date. How fancy? How to solve this? Up to you. I am okay with any solution except with the text file in which I need to write everything. Something that helps me to select the date, month, and day in a particular year. A date picker is something that you can search, research, and include here. Now, I have a file and I have a date. With that, step number 1, read and load the data of the file into a data structure, the attendance file. That one, very simple, something like this. Only 2 values, only 2 columns. Only 2 columns. Column number 1, your ID. Remember, this one was the last one in the previous file. It's going to be useful to connect. The second one, a number. A number, 0 to something, is the number of minutes that you are connected to this meeting. Zoom give me this report. I know who is here and I know how many minutes you are here. I am asking you to read these files. Tricky part, and the only thing that someone working with this need to take care of. These files, the previous one, every single row is a different student. Every single row is a different person. There is not duplicated values, duplicated rows. In this one, you can have duplicated values. You can have the same ID several times with different numbers. Why? Because you can be connected and then disconnect and then connect again, disconnect, connect again. The system record how many times you connect in this example 3 and how many minutes you were connected in every session. My challenge for you, what you need to do, read the file, and if one data is duplicated, put in one entry. So here, John Doe 20 and 20 should be John Doe 40. In this example, if I am 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 75 minutes, just put all of them together, and this user should be related with this number. That is the information that you need to put in the database. Read the file, deal with the duplicated rows, put them together. Obviously, you put them together in the memory, in your data structure. Somehow you need to implement something to search for duplicated values. My advice, read the file first. Once the file is in the memory, then you can do a process, and that process can eliminate duplicate entries and do the addition. It should be easy for one people to work on this, hopefully. Anyway, once you have the data, the next step, show me the data. Add that data in a column in the table. Do you remember that you asked for a date? The only reason because you ask for a date is that date is the header for the column. The header is the date that you ask, is the date of that attendance. The data that you load, the numbers, the minutes, are going to be the ones that you put in this column, the new column that you are adding. And obviously, you're going to search for this guy in one file, and then put here the number, the next one, the number, and so on. One thing could happen for this one, after you read the attendance, I am asking, show a message to your user, show a message and tell your user, you know what, everything were okay. I use read 2 users, 3 users, 20 users, everything fine. And one thing, it could happen that someone is connected, like someone can be connected right now here using an ASU email, but that someone is not in the roster. It could be a good idea to tell the user, you know what, you had one additional attendee. This person is not in the roster, therefore I am not showing you the data here, and was connected a particular amount of time, visitors. Okay, so option number 1, I load a roster, put the roster in the J table. Option number 2, I load attendance. Attendance is the IDs and how many minutes connected in one lecture. Add a column to the table with that particular data, the header, the date, you ask for a date, and all the numbers, and show a dialog box reporting that everything was fine, And if there are extra data in the attendance file, use report that. Yeah, these additionals are not in the roster. In fact, you do not have the name. What you have is something like the ID there, right? Think about my roster. My roster have these two people. What happened if in the file I have XXX 1 minute? That one should be reported here, XXX 1 minute, because XXX is not in the roster, so I report that. Everyone in the roster, one new column with the data. Get table, you already created. Now you are adding a column. How to add a column to a J table that is already on the screen. That was the second tutorial that I shared with you. This one, the message, a dialog box, how to create a dialog box in Java. Maybe you want to review JDialog. It's a parent class and have several childs. Maybe you want to review them. Reading two files, put them together. Looks like you can do this in a week. Well, moving forward, next. I can do this attendance thing several times. The roster is one, but I can open attendance for November 10, and then I can do again, click in the menu, open add attendance. It's going to ask me for a file, a different one. It's going to ask me for a date, a different one, and it's going to load the data. It's going to add a new column. It's going to add numbers. And I can do this 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times. I have an attendance file for every lecture. 100 times. And I have the data on the screen. Moving forward, I have all this data on the screen. I have put together several different files. It could be a good idea that the system offer me an option to save. Save whatever is here, all the columns, all the rows, store in a file. One requirement, the files that you are reading do not have headers. The files that you are reading only have data. From the row 1 and down, every single row is data. Again, I just show you the headers for you to know what is the meaning of each of the columns, but they do not have headers, the input. For the output, something that I am asking you is please store the data, also store the headers. Why? Because remember, these dates here, the user select them. These dates here that are part of the headers are important because that is the date of the meeting, that is the date of the information down. So for the option save, I am asking you to save the headers. Moreover, I am asking you now to do the opposite. Instead of reading files and put the data in your data structure, now put your data structure in a file, and that file should be also a text file, comma, separated values. So I can open this file in Excel, for instance. Your software helped me to put the files together, and then I have the result one, and I can open that one in Excel or a text editor, whatever. Save. I think the requirement for save is pretty clear. Put the data in a file, persistency. One more thing, and we're almost done. The last option, I am asking you to plot the data. I am asking you to show the user a graphical representation of the data. For that one, in particular, I am asking you for this particular representation. I am going to show you an example, don't worry. But that particular representation is something that you have in a particular library. In fact, that one is the name of the class that you are going to use. A library, the one that I am asking you to use, and that library allows you to create charts. There are different types of charts. They are connected with different classes. One of those types, this one. I am asking you to use this library and to create one of those charts using the data that you have in the data structure, using the data that you are showing me in the JTable. In particular, I am giving you here the description, what is going to be in each of the different parts of the plot, but I am going to show you an example, just giving you this information if you read the slides later, or if you come back to watch the video later. So this is the writing instructions. But the example, I am asking you to create some chart like this. This is the following idea. Number one, here, a percentage, 10%, 15%, 20%, 100% numbers. You can go 5 by 5, 10 by 10. It's an option that you can configure in the graph. Percentage of attendance is like you were connected in the session for 7 minutes. 7 minutes is kind of 10% of the full lecture. So you're going to be in the 10% section. You work here for 80 minutes. 80 minutes is 5 minutes more than the duration of the lecture. So you're going to be in 100%. Anything above 75 is going to be 100%. Every single people is going to be in one of these. Now, what I am asking you to do is for a particular date, date 1, date 2, date 3, as many dates as columns we add. In this example, I have 2 columns. I have November 3 and I have November 10. So I have 2 populations, November 3 and November 10, the blue ones and the red ones. So for the first date, November the 3, how many people in the class attend the lecture 100% of the time? You know what? 24 students. 24 students were connected 100% of the time. 24 students were connected 75 minutes or more. How many students attend 50% of the class? How many students were connected at least 32.5 minutes? You know what? 18 students were connected half of the lecture. And so on. How many students here? How many students here? How many students here? How many students here? And so on. In blue, the counting for one of the dates. In red, the counting for another date. And the plot allows you to create as many populations as you want. So if we load here the attendance for the full semester, you're going to have a plot like this, showing the attendance, the different populations, how many people, the percentage of the class that they watch. This plot with the information that you have. I am talking only about attendance. I am not asking you to plot anything related with the core data of the students. I am just using the information to count how many people do the attendance in particular dates. Mandatory using that library. I am asking you to use that library because that library implements some particular patterns that hopefully we're going to have the opportunity to review at the end of the semester. So I am asking you to use this like the only external library besides Swing and AWT. How to create the plot? I am sharing with you also the tutorial. That tutorial shows you examples of how to create this particular plot. Check the example, run the example, and then you can move forward and adapt that thing to your data. One decision that you need to take is where to put the plot. Up to you. You can show the plot in a dialog box, so something that is separate from the main frame. You can replace the J table temporarily with a panel having the plot. You can use tabs, like you can have a tab that have the table and another tab with the plot. Up to you. Dialog box, tabs, replace the panel for another one with the plot, your creativity, your decision, your system. And that are the requirements. Well, that are the ideas. Tell me, how many requirements did I mention? For instance, I am asking you to use a J table That one is a requirement, yes or no. Moreover, if that one is a requirement using a JTable, is functional or non-functional? Moreover, that one is something that you put in a user story or in a use case diagram? And all those questions are yes or no. And all those questions are the things that we're going to evaluate with your project. Hopefully, even though no one answered, but hopefully you agree with me, using a JTable is a requirement? Yes, it's a requirement. Is functional or non-functional? Is non-functional. It's a constraint, not a functionality. Because it's a constraint, because it's non-functional, therefore, cannot be, should not be in a use case diagram, right? Use case diagrams, only functional requirements. Things like that are the things that we expect to review in your report. Good. So any question, guys? Clear. Good. So regarding the design, advice, the system that I am asking you to do is basically following the architecture model view controller. Everything that I described is supposed to be a piece of software in a model view controller scenario. I am asking you to create a view. I am asking you to have listeners for controlling the menu, and I am asking you to have some functionalities. All this functionality is the model part. Moreover, if you think about classes, it is not mandatory to use these ones, but advice. I am asking you to have a frame. The frame is the one that is going to control everything. Well, maybe, use maybe. You're going to need a class, the one that have your method main, and could be a good idea, make that class inherit from JFrame. You have your frame. Second, I am asking you to use a JTable. Recommendation, do not put the JTable in the main frame. Do not put the JTable in this class. Why not? Because you need to separate things. You need to separate things in order to be able to work as a team, in order to be able to give each of you in the team different files. Something that is going to be changing a lot is the content of the table. My recommendation, you can connect the table with another class. And in particular, that class could be a child from JPanel. So you can have a panel, a class that inherits from panel using a JTable, and your main can be using this particular guy. Moreover, all the information that you are loading are going to go to a particular repository, to data structures. My recommendation, if you can have a class that is your repository of the data, the class that have the linked list or the arrays, the class that have the information for the different files. This is the information. The information is the model, but you need to visualize the information in the JTable. You need to connect this one with this one. The best way to connect those two is with the observer pattern. Think about it. If you start working, connecting the graphical user interface and the data repository with something else than the observer pattern, you are going to have a very hard time with the integration. My recommendation, highly recommended, your repository of data should be observable. And the panel with the table, you can make that one an observer, and basically every single time that data is added here, or you remove data, like you open another roster, whatever happened with the data here, automatically, this guy is going to be notified. And the only thing that this guy needs to do is to show the new data on the screen. You can have one programmer here, and you can have another programmer here. Moreover, reading the files, working with the comma-separated values. You can have another programmer doing that. This guy, the only thing that needs to do is to insert data here. This guy is the one that is going to create the data structures, the searching for the data, searching for the duplicates. This guy can be working with the graphical user interface. At least you can split easily the project among 3 people. and you still have 2 more for doing things. Following this, you can split in 3. This can be very helpful and can save a lot of time. So again, my recommendation regarding your design, my recommendation not only for the picture in the diagram, my recommendation for start programming following this scenario. The last thing is the data. The data. I am talking about the roster, and then I am talking about adding to each people in the roster attendance. You can think about several different solutions for that. You can solve that use with data structures. That could be fine. One scenario that you could consider, again, optional. This is kind of up to you, but student with attendance could be a good opportunity to apply decoration. Each row, the initial data is the initial object. All the other elements are decorations, attendance, the numbers. You can think about this object in which you are adding decorations, the boxes, and each decoration is basically the number, the attendance to a new session. And that's your project. 50% of your grade. Any question? Okay, guys, if you have any questions, send us an email. And remember, you have work this week. Exercise 7 is open. Will open in a few minutes, and start working as soon as you can with your project. See you next week.